Hello again, everybody. This is Steve, coming to you with a new item for those who are looking to learn how to get into writing, either as a hobby, a profession, something to annoy your neighbors and family, or any number of things like that. No, anyways, today I'm going to be talking about tropes. First thing though is I'm still working on getting all of the sound and everything right. I checked everything before I started today. If it's off, let me know. We'll eventually get this figured out. I'll try to get this right. But anyways, back into what I was saying. One of the things about tropes, just like cliches, is everybody's done them, and some of them have been beaten to death, ground to powder and thrown to the wind, and people still do them. And there's also the fact that there's nothing new under the sun. Every single idea you have has been done by somebody. What your goal is as a writer is to take something that is already created, already a thing, and make something new with it. Make something different. Mix it up. Shake it up. Do something different. For those of you who remember when I was going over the Off-World Chronicles, you remember the dragons. Or at least I would hope you were if you were paying attention. If you remember the dragons, a lot of people, when they think of dragons, they're generally thinking of, something like this. Although probably not exactly like that. But they're thinking of something where it's big, it's scaly, it breathes fire, it runs around in armored scales, and it eats knights for breakfast. Forget the armor. That's just like eating. For them, that's just like eating a crunchy snack. That's a cliche. That's a trope. That all dragons are evil. All dragons are these big scary monsters. There's these big scary lizards and stuff like that. Okay, I get that. That's the trope. That's the cliche. What can you do differently with it? Using my own dragons here as an example, these guys, admittedly, they're more griffin than they are actually dragon. They're still called dragons, and they still function in a lot of the same ways, and yet there's a lot of unique differences about them. A lot of good differences about them. For example, if you notice, these guys have kind of the canine head. Their feathers are very fur-like. This picture doesn't do it justice, but their wings are a lot bigger. These dudes are they've just got huge wings, which allows them to fly and different things. They have embedded technology, which allows them to be lighter, so that their wings can do even more than just do even more than they can do when they're at their full weight. I don't use the fact that they can change weight much in the story. I'm sure I could use that, for like a fill-in for different things elsewhere. It's more at the beginning to explain how they can fly, because if you look at an actual dragon in mythology and and how it's done in a lot of books and stuff, and you apply actual logical science, them dragons ain't flying. I don't care how big their wings are. Them dragons ain't flying, because according to science, that the design of their body and that weight makes it impossible for them to fly. They could probably, fall with style, but they're not going to fly. These guys, I compensated for that by adding hardware that would actually make them lighter, up to, I think, 90% of their original weight, or 10% of the original weight, 90% less. So that was my way of compensating for it and making it believable. One of the other big things was any living creature that you ever run into, doesn't matter who they are, they need to eat. And the amount of calories that they need to consume just to maintain their body, especially as they get bigger. I mean, you're talking about this dude here walking into a field of 500 bison, and when he leaves, there's only 100 left. And that's just breakfast. So okay, maybe not that much, but you get my point. Is the bigger they are, the more calories they need to support their body. Okay, my solution was to give them nanites that have the ability to harness energy and use that energy to go around and provide nutrients to their bodies that they don't need to eat. Now, okay, yeah, when they get old and their nanites start quitting, dudes starve to death. But, you know, that's just kind of like a give and take, and that's something that even in nature you're going to have give and take. You look at elephants. Elephants burn through teeth, I think they have like 30 sets of teeth over their life. And when they get to the last set of teeth and that one wears out, they starve to death. That's how they die. They don't die of old age. They die of starvation. At old age, yes, but they die of starvation. So that fits in with science. And I know, some of you are like, well, I'm going to be doing fantasy novels. The science doesn't apply. Actually, it does. Even though you're in a fantasy book with magic and wizards and all this kind of stuff, science is still going to apply. Your science may be a little different than documented science. You might be able to bend the rules in various places, but you're still going to be bound within the confines of common science. And a lot of people don't realize that. Especially, I've read some really good fantasy novels, like the Belgariad series. That one was extremely well done. 5 books. The interesting thing about that is, as you read through it, I mean, I'm one who does mostly sci-fi, and as I'm reading through this, I'm looking at it going, okay, that fits with science, that fits with science, that fits with science, even though they're doing all these magic things. And you're gonna find that even in worlds that bend the rules, you're still going to have defined boundaries, defined limitations. Some things will fit with science, some things won't fit with science. Some things will fit with science that we don't even know about yet. Case in point, look at the periodical table. Look at how big... go research what the periodical table was in 1950 versus what it is today. And they're still expecting to add more elements to the periodic table. They're looking to add isotopes to the table. I figure at some point in time they're going to find what I call quantum elements. Those are kind of hard to explain. Quantum elements are something that our science does not know about, although they're going into quantum computing. So I have a feeling they may know about it, but it's one of those, they know about it, but they don't know about the things. Another way to say that is, it works, but they don't know how it works. So that's going to definitely be something that's going to come up on the radar at some point. And that's good for you people who love sci-fi, because then you'll like, hey, look, new toy. And you'll look at, if you want to talk about sci-fi, look at the Star Trek series. You can watch from the original series up through Star Trek Discovery. All the things that they start adding into there, because these are all the different things that science has learned. Well, what's to say that your world can't work with something that science hasn't learned yet? Or let's just say that your world operates on a scientific principle, fantasy or otherwise, that science doesn't know. Take a look at... There's been a lot of anime tropes lately that are of the isekai variety. Isekai basically is you die in one world, you're transported to another world, and you're reborn. That's called isekaiing. And one of the interesting things I've seen with a lot of animes and a lot of mangas that follow that particular trope, and some of them are really just into the cliches, and it's just hard to watch and hard to read. And some of them, they get into those cliches and those tropes, and they rethink them, and they do them in a really interesting way. But anyways, as I was saying, you look at a lot of different animes, and when I look at them, they're all talking about, well, I've got this magical power, and I've got that magical power, and I'm looking at them going, that ain't magic, bro. I'm sorry, that ain't magic. Because, like, if you look at, probably getting this name wrong, but it was something like I'm the 8th son, and, reborn as the 8th son, or something like that. Anyways, he has this magic in there, and as I'm watching him use the magic, I'm like, That looks a whole lot like technology. And then there's another one like I'm gonna get this name wrong, but it's something like I want to be reborn as an average person, something like that. It's about a girl where she dies and gets reborn in a world which is full of magic, and she wants to be an average person, but she ends up being like this OP character, because when she said I want to be average, she didn't realize in this world average included some elder dragons that were like real high, stupid, powerful. And then you had people that had absolutely nothing, and she's in the middle of this, so her being quote-unquote average is like being super OP as far as humans are concerned. Not as far as dragons are concerned, but definitely as far as humans are concerned. You've got that one. I'm watching one, or following one right now, called Reborn as an Aristocrat with an Appraisal Skill. I'm watching that, and it just has this RPG feel to it, and I'm like, that's technology. Now there are some of them that have actual magic in it, because I think I mentioned this before, but I'll reiterate it anyways. Is in writing there are, in writing just like there is in the real world, there are two basic forms of quote unquote magic. There is technology magic or technological magic, and then there's spirit magic. Spirit magic is what you traditionally think of as magic. That's where you got witches running around and they're summoning demons and they're doing incantations and newts or Eye of Newt and boiling cauldrons and stuff. That's spirit magic, because a human being is not possible or not capable of doing magic, so it needs an outside force to make that magic possible. In the case of spirit magic, that's done through demons and other spirits. Tech magic follows along. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke. I'm blanking right now, but who said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I've seen a lot of these ones, like Reborn as the Eighth Son. You've got the Aristocrat with an Appraisal Skill. You've got a bunch of other ones like that. Some of the ones I mentioned. There's a lot of other ones. Oh, that's a good one. Is I'm a spider, so what? That was an interesting one, but that's definitely tech magic. If you look at it, it's got status screens. It plays out just like you're in an RPG. And what it is basically the technology that's in this planet comes from a race that is so ridiculously advanced that everything seems like magic to the people who are using it. Then they call it magic. What's another one I was just thinking of that... Well, Eighth Son, that one you can definitely tell that is a society that has devolved or regressed, but the technology of their ancestors is there. In Offworld, I kind of use that same idea that they're using hyper advanced technology, but it's so advanced you can't tell it's there. You just can see the things it can do. It's embedded in the planet. It's embedded in the people. And you can do a variety of things. You can rewrite. Now, some of it, I give a clear nod to the fact that it's technology, like the rewriting satellites. But then there's other things that, if you didn't know any better, you would think it was magic. So that's kind of the tech magic side of things. And that comes with its own cliches and tropes. And like I say, avoid cliches and avoid tropes unless you can rewrite them and make them something new. Because even though everything under the sun has been done already, it doesn't mean you can't redo it. I mean, take a look at it like a pencil or a pen. Okay, pencil's been invented, the pen's been invented, those have been around for a long time. But look at all the different variations and varieties of them. And they're always constantly making new varieties. They're making better ink. They're making better pens. They're making better pencils. Now, pencils not so much, but you look at the pencil, you originally had like a little piece of chalk, and then you had a piece of chalk wrapped in, or not chalk, but graphite, because I think you had like a piece of graphite, and then you had a piece of graphite wrapped in wood, and then you have and then that pencil grows and it matures and the graphite core gets better, and then somebody comes up with a clicker pencil, and now they've got this super thin rod of graphite, and you fill up this little storage well with all these little sticks of graphite, and click, 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 click. Oh, look, I can write now, and that's another version of the pencil. So it's kind of the same idea with writing. The pencil's already been invented. How can you make it better? How can you do it differently? So that's kind of the situation you're in, that you have to take something that's already been created and rehash it, remake it, redo it, make it better. Sometimes, though, and I'm not saying, when it comes to cliches, burn them all to the ground and do the Phoenix thing and come up with something brand new out of the ashes. You don't necessarily have to do that. 95% of the time, yes. But there are times that even I go in and I will take a trope or I will take a cliche and I will use it in the book, and I will use it exactly how it is in the wider world. And you're like, didn't you just tell us not to do that? Well, hold on. When I use it, sometimes it's for comic relief. Sometimes it is there to do a specific task that remaking that cliche will not work. Trying to think of a good example where I did that. But okay, here's one that's been used a lot, is where somebody's like, well, I didn't get the memo. I actually used that with Dutch in the Earthfleet series, where Dutch, they're talking about something. Dutch is like, I've never heard about that, and they're jokingly like, well, somebody didn't get the memo. So it can be, you can use them as is. Like, for example, you could use a cliche that all rich people have Lamborghinis, and you could use something like that. And you could use it stock, where you have this character in the book, and he's super rich, and he rolls up to the main character in the Lamborghini. So, you can use them, but if you want to do it right, there's only a limited number of places you can use them, and you have to get a bit creative in how you use them, because otherwise your readers are going to sit there and they're going to see that and go, I don't want to read that. And that's what you're trying to avoid. You want to, if you use them and use them as is, you want to keep them, or you want to use them in a way that is unique and interesting. Humor is a great way to use cliches. I've used cliches and tropes in a lot of different humor, and they make, because they're so overused and so absurd that they work perfectly there. So, but again, that's the exception. That's the 5% rule. The 95% says don't use them, or if you use them, remake them to where they're not the cliche anymore. So, I'm trying to think of another one. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Here's another great example of taking a cliche and flipping it on its head, or trope, if you will. And I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'll rehash it here because some of you may not have seen the previous videos or don't want to sit through like hours and hours of video to go find this, which I don't blame you if that's the case. But when I did Earthfleet, one of the things I knew at the time was that a big cliche, a big sci-fi trope, and that's even really in modern lore and legend, that quote-unquote lizard people are the enemy. They are bad people, they're evil people, they want you dead, they want you enslaved, all these horrible things. The reptiles are going to come and they're going to overrun us and they're going to enslave us and destroy us and stuff. That's the cliche, that's the trope. I looked at it and says, well, why don't we flip this on its head? What if the reptiles are actually the good guys? What if they're actually nice people? What if they're very friendly and very helpful? And from that came the Geek-Von. The Geek-Von are best friends with Earth, but then again, as I mentioned before, they're best friends with a lot of people because they realize that you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. So they're not the conquering type. They realize that if they go in there and they force their will on people and they conquer them and enslave them and try to wipe them out, somebody's going to turn that sword on them someday and they're going to get wiped out. So or conquered or enslaved or whatever like that. So they're over there realizing, well, we do better if we make friends as much as possible, which is the exact opposite of the cliche about reptiles or reptilians or reptoid people. Now, as far as cliches go, there are times when you can actually use them effectively. Take the Yandians, for example. This one comes from the old saying, curiosity killed the cat. So the Yandians are a pun. They're a cliche that's a pun. Because, the Yandians are information nerds. And so, that they're kind of a pun. Now, here's another one that I did use it as a cliche, but I used it in a way that would be beneficial to the story, is the there they are. The Varnock, oh no, the fish guy, they're horrible, they're evil, they're terrible people. And they're one of the villains, or they're the villain in the first book. Well, one of the villains. There's actually two of them, but there's the overarching villain, and then there's the episodic villain, and these guys are the episodic villain. Now, the thing about these guys is, when you first meet them, you meet the Varnock in general. You meet the Varnock ambassador, who's a complete prick. Mobaek, who's the admiral of the Black Fleet. You meet the Varnock prophet, who's this kind of scheming, conniving, self-interested, quote-unquote religious leader, which he's anything but a religious leader. And if any of you know anything about religion, you're going to have that. You're going to have the supplicants, you're going to have the zealots, and then you're going to have the opportunists. And that's just true in any religion. Doesn't matter what religion it is. You're going to have all of those. And it's okay to have those, because that's just a natural flow of how that works in real life. And people can relate to that. So that's something you're safe to get away with. But they start out as the bad guy. But then as you go along, you find out that, oh, well, they're not all bad. You just have certain people in positions of power that are psychopathic, psychopathic warmongers and stuff like that, and they're the ones that are the real problem, not the rest of the race. Because you find out in Destiny's Mission that, hey, actually the Varnock aren't all that bad. They're more like there's factions within them. One faction's bad, and they hate humans, they hate the Geekvon, they hate the Yandians, etc. like that. Got their butts kicked in the War of the Nine. They're, some of them are a little too egotistical for their own good. But then there's actually Varnock that are very, very good people. And so that, that's something you can do to kind of take the trope and take the cliche and mix it up and do things with it. Now what is it? The Trigarians. I took them and kind of took the angry hissy cat type thing, the feral cat idea, mixed it up with some of the cliches from modern society, and made for kind of a fun race. They're warlike. They love going out and fighting and getting into fights and spats and stuff. And in a sense, you could kind of say that's kind of the same thing as Star Trek's Klingons. And there were the I'm trying to think what the race was in Babylon 5 that was like that they were all warlike and warrior-like, and let's go out and conquer the galaxy. And then you have the Trigarians. No, that's them. It's the Anglo-Orients. The Anglo-Orients, they have a lot of wolf-like traits. They're more like, we're Romans, and they, because you could say like also the Trigarians kind of have almost a, Soviet Union feel to them, whereas the Anglo-Orients have more of a Roman feel to them. They even have some of the same attire. So, take some old-fashioned cliches, mix them up, redo them. Romans as wolves. I actually used Romans in the actual Earthfleet saga. That they were, the Earth was, kind of to take the whole idea that Earth was its own worst enemy, because it had humans that were trying to cause all, the humans were causing all of the problems in the galaxy, but they were also trying to fix it, and it was on two different sides of the same story. So that, like I said, that's a different way to do it. Now, as far as cliches and tropes go, here's another one that you could look at, is in the Land of the Lions series. What was his name? I'll look it up this way. Cigar, that's who it was. This guy. I gotta find a better picture than that of him. But anyways, Cigar is your quintessential demonic bad guy. He is just evil through and through, all the way through it, until you get to book 4, and he starts going, okay, clearly I'm on the wrong side of this fight because we keep losing. And he starts looking around and realizing, I think I chose the wrong side. I think I went down the wrong path. So he's a villain that starts to that he doesn't stay the villain the whole way through. He doesn't stay, he doesn't follow a cliche to begin with. Now, I use some cliches for him, but he doesn't follow that trope all the way through. You see him kind of, as he goes along, you see him looking at it and experiencing all these failures and other things like this. And then in book 4, that light bulb goes on. And he's like, I'm still evil, I'm still dark, I'm still your enemy, but I want to turn over a new leaf. So it's the bad guy becoming a good guy. And that's something that's been used a lot. Yes, I admit that. That's been used a lot. But it also depends on how you use it, to whether or not it's cliche, it's a trope. Mix it up. Do something different. Like, Cigar takes his demon side, basically, his dark side, and does some really awesome stuff with it in helping the good guys. And he eventually takes Regnig, his first officer, and kind of turns a light bulb on for him. And he turns against Nagago. So he's a good example of that. In Offworld Chronicles, if you've read the series, if you're not, I apologize for the spoiler, but you look at the chief director. Up to the point of meeting the chief director, and up to the point of meeting Maul Ratner, up to the point of meeting him, your opinion of the controllers is everybody is evil. All of the controllers are evil. They're nasty, sadistic, controlling people, and you want to see them defeated, you want to see them beaten. But then you meet Maul, and at first you're like, oh yeah, he's another controller, yeah, okay, we're going to follow this cliche. And then you start finding out he's actually not a bad guy. He has an odd way of doing things, but he's not actually a bad guy. And you get a little further into the story, and you start seeing that, all isn't rosy in Wonderland. That there are people on the Section 17 side who are for the Brotherhood, and there are people on Section 17 side who are not. And you start finding out that the chief director isn't actually a bad guy. He has to play the bad guy, but he's not actually a bad guy. And you slowly find out that, okay, so he's not a bad guy. Then what is he? Well, he's self-interested. I'm not going to say that he's a superhero or anything. He's self-interested. But he's self-interested in a good way, because he realizes, if I can free these people, I can free myself. And freeing myself is the primary goal. But I have to free the planet in order to free myself. And that's kind of the way he starts out. And his instructor, who was Maul Ratnar, his instructor and mentor, Maul's already woken up to who the Brotherhood really is and what's actually going on, and the fact that so long as the Brotherhood is in control of Offworld, they're prisoners, even though that they're one half of the, or they're prisoners and slaves and stuff, even though they're one half of this Syndicate alliance. Maul Ratnar woke up to this while he was still chief director, and he woke up to it well, like way, way, way before he started training the current chief director. But he was never able to do anything about it because the way the contract was and between them and the Brotherhood, he was locked in. And he was actually able to do more once he retired than he was while he was chief director. But he started the ball rolling. He started putting things in place. And then you have, the current chief director who comes in, and he was mentored by Maul. So even though he's self-interested, he's got all of that instruction from Maul that has started him down the right path, which leads him down the path that eventually helps them defeat the Brotherhood and free Offworld from the control of the Syndicate. I'm trying to think of some other ones that are like breaking the tropes or redoing and rehashing and stuff. Well, I got one I want to tell you about, but the book isn't released, so to be fair to everybody, I can't say that one. I know I spoil a lot of stuff, but my thought is, if you're watching these videos and you haven't read the books, that's on you, because the books are already out there. But if the book isn't out there and I spoil something, that's not fair to you guys, so I'm not going to tell that one. But that one, I got one that involves Offworld that gets around the isekai trope. I'll tease it that way, and I'll let you guys figure that one out later. Once you read the books, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But those will be out eventually. With the After Offworld trilogy, I'm waiting for some stuff to happen with my publishers. Once that happens, then I'll release them. If that doesn't start happening in the next 3 months, I'm going to release them anyways, and then I'll just put the next book or the next trilogy or series or book or whatever that I end up releasing. That'll be on the table to get taken care of by the publishers once they complete their part of the bargain. It's a slow process, and I'm delaying, I'm waiting, and I'm going to see where that publishing thing goes. I'm looking to see where the economy goes, because the economy is in bad shape, as you know, right now. So I want to see how that shakes out. I want to see where a lot of other things go. I've got some things in my life that I have to sort out. I'm not going to tell you about that. You don't need to hear about that. That's just boring stuff. But I'm waiting for some some certain life things to work themselves out, and then I can start throwing that back out there. So I'm not quitting. I just have a little plug in the sewer pipe, so to speak, and I'm waiting for that to clear, waiting for the Drano to do its work, if you will. But anyways, I think I'll stop my presentation there. We're at 33 minutes. But yeah, that's basically a look at how to deal with various tropes. One other thing you can do too, and I'll say this real quick, something that would have come up in the Offworld Chronicles, but I eventually scrapped that in favor of something different. But I did do something like this in the Earthfleet saga. Is you have the Bior who are kind of Minotaur-like, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's where Minotaur legend came from. So you could do something like that where it's a cliche, but now the cliche has a history, and like, oh, okay, now that explains why that's there, and you could use that in your story, for example. Or you talk about the abominable snowman, or the Yeti, or the Bigfoots and stuff, and then you find out you've got the Yetish, which the Yetish are like the Yenians. They are a pun. The Yetish because they're Yeti-like. And different things like that. Like I say, don't be afraid to turn them into puns. Take your cliches, make puns out of them, make humor out of them. Do something fun with them. Do something different. Take what others have done, rethink it, rehash it, remake it, redo it. Make it something unique to you. Anything else I wanted to reiterate? I think that's it for this one. Again, sorry for going long. I tried to keep this one short, but, I'm a novelist. Short does not work for me usually. I started out doing short stories, but now I'm a novelist, and it's hard to stick to just, a short presentation. Just like it's hard to stick to a short book anymore. But Anyhow, as usual, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, etc. like that, please let me know. If there's other things you want me to cover, please let me know, and I'll do my best to cover them. Some things I may not know about because I haven't gotten into them yet, but as I grow and continue to create as an author, I probably will at some point. So, anyways, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time.